guys, it's Carrie, and you guys have been asking for this video for a very long time, and it is finally here. I'm going to be answering some of your questions about studying abroad in Korea, specifically Seoul. I asked for your questions on Instagram, and I got a bunch that were asking how to be like a full-time student here, like doing your entire undergrad. There were also people who were interested in how do you study abroad as someone who just graduated high school and someone who graduated college. And I don't want to give any incorrect information, so I'm going to link some people I know who have studied here as full-time students, they're full undergrad, so you can kind of ask them about it. And then as far as I know, for if you've graduated college or if you've graduated high school and you aren't like a current university student, I think your only option is really going to be going through language schools and language programs. But because I really don't know anything about that, I don't want to give you any false information. So this video is specifically for if you are in college or if you are planning to be in college and you want to study abroad. That is what I did, that is what I know, so apologies if I can't answer your questions, but I know that there are a lot of resources out there. I hope that you find the answer you are looking for. Also, before we jump in, this is not sponsored by CIEE, but it damn well should be because I am their biggest hype woman. CIEE is the study abroad program that I use. You will hear me reference them a lot. If you can use them, I highly suggest them. But yeah, this isn't a CIEE sponsored video. I wish it were. Anyway, let's go. So first and foremost, how did I get started? And about how long did the whole process take? Typically in America, students study abroad their junior year, your third out of fourth year. So my spring semester of my sophomore year is when I kind of started getting ready. Your university typically will have a study abroad office or a study abroad advisor. And in my case, it was like a little office and it just had a ton of brochures. And you just kind of have to research what your school offers. I was actually the first person at my university to go to Korea to study abroad. So they actually didn't have a whole lot of information for me, which was interesting. And then before the paperwork even starts, you need to get approved by your university. So usually it's like a minimum GPA kind of thing. It's not really that hard. I think it's like a 2.5 GPA. And also probably your academic advisor, because in my case, I was doing a double major, so I really had to make sure that all of my credits counted. Like I had to show them what classes I was planning on taking so that they could sign off and say like, yes, she will have enough time to finish her major when she gets back. So once I was personally approved by my home university to study abroad, then I had to apply to the program I wanted. And CIEE then has to also approve you. And again, it's not a huge deal. It's usually like another kind of minimum GPA requirement, and that's really it. And then once you get approved by CIEE, you need to do all the paperwork for your visa, you need to sign up for your classes, you need to get there, start the whole shebang. And so that entire process probably was kind of like a 7 to 6 month process. So yeah, you need quite a bit of time. Did I have criteria for choosing my specific school? I am a communications and an East Asian studies major, so I needed to make sure that the school that I went to had classes that would provide for those majors. I needed like film courses, history courses, etc. I also knew that I really wanted to be in Seoul, and then that was kind of it for me. But CIEE looked freaking amazing because it had a bunch of other different activities. There was a trip to Japan included in your program. There were a bunch of excursions, stuff like that. I knew it was a good choice, and it kind of ticked the few boxes that I had, honestly. So a lot of questions about this. Approximate cost, how did I pay for this? How much did I need, like pocket expenses? So this is where the Europeans can laugh at us poor Americans. It is like a typical American school. It's actually kind of like an expensive American school. I went for an entire year and that ended up being about $34,000. I know. So, but don't give up hope yet, because CIEE gives out a ton of scholarships. They're actually doing like a summer school kind of thing for high schoolers, like a summer program, and it's $5,000 for like 3 weeks. And I was kind of like, how are these kids paying for that? Like, nice parents, right? But I talked to my program director and she said that 75% of those kids had full rides, like full ride scholarships. You also still get the financial aid from your home university. The only thing that I couldn't get was my work study. Part of my financial aid was that I had a job on campus and that would like pay me like a normal job. It was like a minimum wage job. But because I wasn't physically at school, I couldn't do that. So that was a sacrifice that I had to make, like a financial burden. But you do get a lot of scholarship opportunities. There are also loans. Woo! As far as other ways that I paid for it, just a lot of savings from summer jobs since I could work. Also my work study for the past 2 years at my university, they were really helpful. And also Seoul is way cheaper than New York City. My daily expenses when I lived in New York compared to when I lived in Seoul were actually a lot less. So that actually really helped me financially. It's currently like $3 to take the subway in New York, and here it's like $1. So yeah, it was a nice change. Next up, what were the dorms like? What was dorm life like? The dorms were pretty nice. At Yonsei, there are 2 options for international students. One is SK Global House, which is what I lived in, and one is International House or iHouse. I don't know why, but the CIEE kids are put in SK Global. I believe that one's a lot newer. It's a lot nicer, sorry to the iHouse kids. It's like really clean, really nice. My first room was haunted, but like that's not a huge deal. It's like a typical American style dorm room. It's usually a double room. You don't have a whole lot of space in between the beds, but you do have a desk, a bed, a very small closet, a toilet sink, and then a separate shower stall. So you are sharing your bathroom with just one other person. There's AC, there's heating, and then there's lots of really nice public spaces. So there are lounges / study rooms on each floor, which are also gendered, I believe. There's a huge kitchen in the basement, and each floor has a microwave, a sink, and possibly a range. I just remember the microwave because my friend's roommate had an egg explode in the microwave and she had to go to the hospital. So also a lot of your classes, because if you go to Yonsei, you will be going to the Underwood International College. A lot of your classes will be right next to the dorms. In some cases, it's even connected by like kind of a tunnel thing. So in case of bad weather or anything like that, you can stay inside the whole time and get to your dorms really easily. Unless you are like me and you choose a philosophy class that's like a mile hike, because there is a hill. Yonsei's campus is hilly. Think about that when you are picking a class that is like way on the other side of campus. Just a fair warning. Speaking of classes, a lot of you guys were interested in what are the classes like compared to the US, and also what classes did I take. So I took a lot of history and film / media and philosophy classes. The classes. I had a professor literally tell me that because I was studying abroad, he didn't want to give us a lot of homework because he wanted us to have a lot of time to experience Korea. So as a result, I feel like most of my professors felt that way. We didn't have a whole lot of homework. I think I wrote 1 essay, maybe. It was just a lot of reading and quizzes and tests. I know that some of my friends had classes that were a little bit more writing heavy, but overall, I felt that it was a lot easier than when I was in America. Also in America, we typically like to participate. Professors like to call on us. We have a lot of group things, but in Korea, it's a lot of lectures and listening and taking notes. You don't get called on a whole lot. It was fine, but yeah, definitely different. Going off of that, was there a language barrier? So all my classes were in English, but some of my professors were a little bit difficult to understand, like not because of their accents, but because of they just were very vague. So if you're the kind of person that needs structure, sometimes that might be hard, but overall it was really fine. And then as far as with the students, you're typically with other international students. So English is the common language. I was in one class where I was the only foreigner, but even then it was totally fine. Except I did have one friend, if you're thinking of taking the sciences, I had one friend who took chemistry, and she went into the lecture section, and the lecture was in English, which is great. But then there's also a lab section. She was the only non-Korean in the class, so the professor decided to just do the lab in Korean. even though it was supposed to be in English, and Sally didn't speak any Korean, so she's like trying to deal with chemicals in Korean. So she ended up having to drop that class. So especially if you're a science major, think long and hard about that. Next up, how hard was it to make relationships at first? With CIEE, we actually got there about 2 weeks early, like before school started. And in order to kind of get us used to living in the city, get us comfortable, they did a lot of activities. Like we had a scavenger hunt that we all, like I'm still in contact with a lot of my study abroad friends, and like we all still remember it so well. Like we all have these like traumatic memories of getting lost. But you know, we did scavenger hunts, we broke into groups, we did a lot of activities. It also just so happened that like everybody in my group was really awesome. I started school with like 20 friends. So that was really cool. Depending on your program, it's easier to make friends really quickly. But I think even without CIEE, just because everybody's kind of in the same boat, they're all probably came alone, they're in a foreign country, you already have something in common because you chose to come to Korea. So I think it's a lot easier to make friends. So. How was adjusting and how did I deal with culture shock? To be honest, I don't think I had any culture shock. I kind of go with the flow for most things, which helps me out. But also because I was living in New York City, I kind of feel like if you live in New York, you can kind of deal with anywhere. If I had lived in like a small town or something and I came here, I think I would have had like, not necessarily culture shock, but like urban shock, because it's a fast city, it's a busy city, it's a crowded city in a lot of places, especially where Yonsei is, where most of the universities are. So no to culture shock, but if you are from a smaller town, it just might be a little overwhelming, the size of this city. And then kind of related, did I get homesick? No, I don't really get homesick. I already was going to university on the other side of the country from my parents. So really coming to Seoul, it was just a time difference. I still call them every Monday morning here. So yeah, I just don't get homesick. Any advice to your younger Yonsei self would be definitely don't annoy Keiko in the SK Global Lounge while she is studying. But really no, I think one thing for me was my first semester, I was kind of in this mindset where at my American university, my campus was huge, and to get to anything outside of my campus, it took a really long time. So let's say I had an 8 o'clock class and then a 1 o'clock class. I would pretty much just stay on campus. Like I would either go back to my dorm or I would just sit in the cafeteria or the library until I would go to my 1 o'clock class. And I kind of did the same thing just because that's what I was used to when I was at Yonsei. But if you have a 4-hour break at Yonsei, you can go out and walk around and do something really cool in that amount of time. You can go to a really cute cafe and study. You can just go for a walk and see the sights. I spent a lot more time kind of in my dorm being studious, which like isn't a super bad thing. More my first semester than I needed to, especially because we just weren't given work. We didn't have a lot of work. We were given time to explore. So my second semester, I was a lot better with that, but yeah, I would definitely say if you have a couple hours to kill, don't just go back into your dorm unless you want to. Like semesters are long. Definitely give yourself a break, but go out and explore when you have the time. That is what I would tell myself. Okay, last couple of questions. What do I think is a better investment, study abroad or post-college travel? So this is 100% just my opinion based on no research or facts. But in my opinion, I really think that if you can, studying abroad during college is so important for so many reasons. Number one, you have the opportunity to get work experience or internships, stuff like that abroad, which is incredible for your resume no matter what you are trying to do. But also, studying abroad literally changes your life. Like I don't think there's anyone who has gone to study abroad and has come back the same, whether it was a positive experience, a negative experience, a meh experience. So for me, I was really planning on living and working and honestly like retiring and dying in New York City. But coming to Seoul, I was suddenly like, I need to come back. And I spent my entire senior year working my butt off to get back here. And so if you did post-college travel, you might already be settled in a job. It might be very difficult to change your situation and kind of take that big leap to move abroad if you want to, or something like that. But I do have a lot of friends who just weren't able to. Shout out to all my med school kids. It's hard. And a lot of them did some post-college travel. One of my close friends, she did med school, but she was also a French major. And so when she graduated, she went and she worked on a lavender farm in France. It was amazing for her. And now she, then she went into her like 3,000 years of med school, and now she's a doctor. I think traveling at any point, if you can, like, get yourself to another country and your life will be changed. It doesn't matter when or where, like, just doing it is amazing. But if you have the choice, I think studying abroad during college is a really great idea. Okay, I thought this question was so funny. Were you nervous you wouldn't like it as much as you thought you would? Yes. Okay, I actually, when I was planning where to go, I literally almost did Amsterdam and then London. I almost completely didn't go to Seoul. I don't even know what was going through my head. I'm sure if you're asking this question, like what I was feeling probably. I really felt like I don't want to pop the fantasy bubble in my head of what Seoul is. But I'm so glad I decided to come. And actually, when I first came here, I was going to be doing a semester in Seoul and then a semester in London. And I was here for about 2 weeks, and I called my study abroad advisor and I was just like, screw it, like erase London, like I'm gonna stay here for an entire year. And then I had to redo my whole student visa to extend it, and it was a complete headache. But I'm so glad I did it. So yes, I was very nervous, but I'm very glad that I chose to come. And oh my god, the last question, you guys are breaking my heart. How to deal with post-study abroad depression / the sadness of leaving your friends. Guys, I am still depressed. I have been out of my study abroad program for 6 years. I had such a good time. Like, if I could rewind and go to any point in my life and live it over again without changing anything, it would be that time. Like, oh man, I feel for you 100%. Like, luckily for me, I stayed in really close contact with a lot of my friends. Obviously, Kayla and I are still connected at the hip, even though she is in America right now. We're going to Europe later this year, so hey. Went back to New York. Luckily, a lot of people in my program were kind of in the area. Kayla took a 10-hour bus up to see me like twice. And actually, one of my kind of closest guy friends from my first semester here, he was just randomly in Seoul for a business trip, and we met up. I haven't seen him in 7 years, and it was like no time passed. He actually managed to convince Kurt to go up the top of the Lotte Tower, like 118 stories high. So hats off to you, Chris, because I didn't think that was possible. Also, Kayla and I have made the trip multiple times to Singapore to hang out with our crazy friends who live in Singapore. We have a big group chat, and it might go quiet for a couple weeks, but we all know that we're always there for each other. You know a good friend when you come across them, and you will make the effort to kind of keep that connection. So it sucks, but the friendships will stay if they're meant to be. I just, like, my heart goes out to you because I cried so hard on the airplane coming home. Like, even thinking about it, I'm tearing up, and it's like 6 years ago. What's wrong with me? No, it's like, it's really hard, and I totally feel you. The thing that honestly kept me going was just spending all of my energy figuring out how to get back here. It's hard, and I got so lucky. Lit a fire under my butt to like get stuff going, which was great, but I was also just so sad. But don't let that stop you from studying abroad. If you're like, what the heck, am I gonna be like super sad after? Yes, but you will also be probably the happiest that you've ever been. So yeah, that is the end of the questions. I hope that I answered most of your questions. If you have any more specific ones, please leave them down below. Studying abroad changes your life. It's something that if you can do it, you really should. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your questions, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.